We need to recognize this basic fact. Wise decisions bring positive rewards, and wrong decisions can result in very negative consequences. Of course, all of us want to make wise decisions, but what are wise decisions?
Decisions that are wise, I'm guessing?
Wise decisions are those that please our Heavenly Father, Jehovah. Most of us have already made some very good decisions. These include the big decisions in life, such as dedicating ourselves to Jehovah and getting baptized.
Yeah, I bet nobody regrets that decision.
And deciding not to become involved in the religious and political disputes of this world. No doubt before we made those major decisions, we spent a lot of time praying about them and seeking Jehovah's direction. And we've seen His blessing in our lives because of these right decisions. In this program, though, we won't be discussing such major decisions. Rather, we'll focus on decisions that may be viewed by some as minor. However, some of these can lead to very serious consequences.
We're watching governing body member Geoffrey Jackson take us through the theme, Make Wise Decisions, and right from the get-go, we're learning that it's not as simple as just having the freedom to make your own decisions. Decisions can be either wise or unwise, depending on how the organization views them. So if it happens to be a decision such as getting baptized and pledging yourself to the organization for the rest of your life, conveniently, according to Geoffrey Jackson, who's one of the leaders of this organization, that's a fantastic decision. That's a very wise decision to this particular issue. But when it comes to other areas, this is what he's telling us towards the end there. It's not just about the major decisions we make in life, it's also about seemingly minor decisions.
We'll focus on decisions that may be viewed by some as minor. However, some of these can lead to very serious consequences.
Those words pretty much encapsulate the entire Jehovah's Witness approach to morality, to laying down guidelines and rules and restrictions on people. Geoffrey Jackson isn't just interested in having people pledge themselves to the organization for the rest of their lives. He's interested in having a say in what people do with their lives, even in minor areas or areas that others might consider minor. He is interested in micromanaging people.
Lesson 1. Just because we've done many good things in Jehovah's service doesn't mean that we'll always make wise decisions. Lesson 2. Making friendships with those who hate Jehovah can put us under pressure to make other unwise decisions. Lesson 3. Even though we may seek Jehovah's direction, we must follow it if we want to make wise decisions. Lesson 4. If we realize that we've made an unwise decision, don't keep going in the same course. Stop and change direction. These lessons can be summarized in the words of Proverbs 22 verse 3. There we're told, "The shrewd one sees the danger and conceals himself, but the inexperienced keep right on going and suffer the consequences." Yes, we need to see the possible consequences of wrong decisions and then take action to avoid them. What were some of the consequences of Jehoshaphat's unwise decisions? It nearly cost him his life. His oldest son died an apostate, and later his daughter-in-law Athaliah killed all the heirs to the throne except one baby and set herself up as Queen of Judah.
Oh dear, Jehoshaphat's son died an apostate. What a terrible fate to befall him. So yes, we're learning more now about what Geoffrey Jackson means when he's talking about wise versus unwise decisions. Again, it ultimately boils down to how much control he gets or the governing body get in people's lives. And he was referring earlier to decisions not just on like a macro level or major decisions. He was talking about seemingly minor decisions in which it's important to make the wise decision or the decision that the organization would have you make. And we're learning what such a minor decision might include.
Making friendships with those who hate Jehovah can put us under pressure to make other unwise decisions.
Yeah, you don't want to make friendships with those who hate Jehovah because, you can't move for people like that nowadays, can you? They're everywhere, Jehovah haters. They even have merch, don't they? I hate Jehovah. They walk around the streets loudly proclaiming how much they hate Jehovah. I think, obviously, he is grossly exaggerating. He is using very loaded language. What he means when he says people who hate Jehovah is people who don't recognize my authority or the authority of the governing body. If you don't recognize the authority of the governing body and become a Jehovah's Witness or remain a Jehovah's Witness who is subservient to the governing body, you must hate Jehovah, and therefore you deserve to die at Armageddon. And why would anyone want to waste time being your friend? That's essentially the way Jehovah's Witnesses are encouraged to think, and it shows in what Geoffrey Jackson is saying here. Then you have this delicious irony, which gets repeated, by the way, throughout Geoffrey Jackson's sermon, of him referring to the courage that's needed to change course if we realize we've made a wrong decision.
If we realize that we've made an unwise decision, don't keep going in the same course. Stop and change direction.
Isn't that exactly what apostates have done, Geoffrey Jackson? They have realized that they have made an unwise decision. They have stopped and they have done something about it. They've got themselves out of what they have realized is a toxic belief system, a manipulative and controlling organization. That's clearly not what he's referring to. He's referring to doing things that he doesn't like, such as, watching the wrong entertainment or choosing to associate with the wrong people or wear the wrong clothes, maybe wear ripped jeans. Whatever it is that's his personal beef, he's referring to changing your course when it comes to those decisions. But as we're going to see, his words are laden with irony when you consider the courage that's needed, the personal integrity that's needed to make the conscientious decision to stop being a believing Jehovah's Witness.
Thinking back to the illustration of the two captains, at times they may need to reverse a former unwise decision. That happened during a hurricane back in 1889. The captain of the British ship Calliope was anchored in the harbor in Apia, Western Samoa, when a hurricane started blowing. Initially, he decided, like all the other captains in the harbor, to weather the storm where he was. But as the waves grew in height and the dangers increased, the captain realized he had made the wrong decision. What did he do? He courageously reversed his decision and headed out to open sea. It was difficult, but ultimately he saved himself, his ship, and the 250 sailors on board. This bold act of courage entered him into the annals of naval history. To be like that courageous captain, at times we need to prayerfully re-examine our past decisions. These could be decisions about our employment, entertainment, education, or even where we live. When we made the original decisions, they may have seemed wise to us. But do they still seem that way now?
That's exactly what I was talking about to begin with. So earlier on, Geoffrey Jackson was talking about the need to make wise decisions, not just in major areas, but even in what others might consider minor areas. And he's just given us there more examples. So we've already heard that you're not allowed to have friends who hate Jehovah, who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses. That would be an unwise decision. And now towards the end, we're learning that you need to also make wise decisions about your employment, entertainment, education, or even where you live. This is the scope of control that Geoffrey Jackson wants over you, that the governing body crave over their followers. They want to be able to influence their followers in all of these areas of life. That's enough for them. When it comes to other cults, it's all about the money. I'm thinking about groups like Scientology and NXIVM. They also have, don't get me wrong, huge amounts of control in people's personal and intimate lives. But there's a greater emphasis, I would argue, on making money in those groups and, finding a way to extract as much cash as possible from individual members. When it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not quite the same. They just get a kick. When I say they, I mean the governing body. They get a kick out of how much control they have over people's lives and the decisions they make, to the extent where you don't even really have the freedom to decide who your friends are, what your employment is, what your entertainment is. But let's return to the irony of Geoffrey Jackson reminding Jehovah's Witnesses of the courage that's needed to change course. He's given us there an analogy regarding an incident in 1889, a hurricane. And apparently there were all these ships in this harbor, and the hurricane came in, and obviously the ships were being thrown around. And the captain of the Calliope decided to go out into open water. He decided, we're going to be reduced to matchsticks if we stay here. At least our odds will improve if we can navigate, if we can try and make a break for it and head to where the sea might be a bit calmer. And as Geoffrey Jackson mentions, that proved to be a wise decision. But isn't that exactly the situation you find yourself in when you are a believing Jehovah's Witness who realizes that you're in a toxic group that is rampant with child sexual abuse, that encourages families to implode wherever there's a difference of opinion with the governing body, or wherever someone strays in any way from what the governing body requires? Doesn't this analogy fit perfectly with the plight of apostates? Sometimes you need to be the one that's different. Sometimes you need to be the one that says, screw this. This is not working out for me. I am not interested in weathering any storm. I'm not interested in hanging around and seeing my family get decimated, or seeing my decisions in life be so restricted needlessly, I think I'm going to make a break for it, you know. I think I'm going to roll the dice and see if my life improves if I can just get out into open water, into the world outside of Jehovah's Witnesses. Because when you're in Jehovah's Witnesses, you consider yourself to be in some kind of protective bubble, a bit like a harbour. This is my harbour. This is my safe space. You imagine that sheer doom awaits were you to get outside of that bubble, were you to go beyond the boundaries. So a little bit like in a film that I think has a wonderful metaphor when it comes to cults, The Village by M. Night Shyamalan. Similar dynamic there. You're terrified of what lies beyond. But sometimes people don't just realize that the situation they're in with Jehovah's Witnesses is undesirable. They're so desperate to make a change that they make a break for it. They give themselves permission to think for themselves for the first time in their lives. And they realize that actually, beyond the confines of Jehovah's Witnesses, there is peace, there is calm, there is, dare I say it, happiness and satisfaction in finally having the freedom to think for yourself.